Good morning, people, and welcome to Your Morning Cup with Chuck, where I help you get inspired, educated, and motivated to a point where all you think is positive thoughts, baby, and positive thoughts create positive action. Welcome to the First Cupkc. This podcast is powered by Podcast.
Good morning, people, and welcome to Your Morning Cup with Chuck. Today we are talking about the importance of having a life coach. So, what is a life coach? A life coach is a professional person that helps counsel and encourage other people in matters that associate with personal, professional, and financial situations and goals. Today I actually have a life coach with me as a guest. Meet John E Avocado.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I want to know one thing, and I know the viewers are going to want to know this, man.
All right.
Who is John E Avocado?
Who's Johnny?
And how did you come up with the John E Avocado? I know it's a story behind it.
Okay, so John E Avocado is absolutely. So my name is John, and my middle name is E. And so to distinguish me from my father growing up, he was John, he was Big John, I was Johnny or Little John, and I didn't like Little John, so Johnny is what stuck. So everybody called me Johnny, even though it's right. John E. So as we were talked a little bit earlier about my name changing ceremony that I've developed as part of a process that I help people make transitions, to take control and command of your life. I went through this process myself, and in the process of doing that, I had to determine and decide what my name wanted to be, what I wanted my name to be. And I'm very analytical in some aspects when I think about things like this. Engineering is my background, so a pattern and how things fit together and what that means to how they interact with folks. I was chasing communication and how we communicate to one another to get what we need out of life. Uh-huh. And so along those lines, a lot of that science and a lot of that research comes out of sales and things like that. And so I got to chase and fall in the rabbit hole of how we sell ourselves to one another. And so avocado is a term and a word that's very new and fresh in the world. It ends with O, and it rhymes with so many things. It starts with A, so it shows up early in the list. That's
how you make guacamole.
It's absolutely, and they're buttery and delicious, and they're so amazing, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was a manufacturing of my mind. I set my mind to work intentionally to develop a word that made me who I was. Right. And the process of what my mind is formulated, and this is the answer developed. And this is for all the reasons. I mean, we just numbered a few there, but when I come up with an answer, it's a very deep answer. And I mean, there's 1,000 things that this name hits for me. Uh-huh. And so I fell in love with it. And then, so we had that ceremony that I was talking about where right. You change your name. We had all these people in the park, and I had this. So what I did is I wanted everyone to connect with me, and I'm very nature-centric, so I'm very oriented around that. So what I did is I built a planter, a box, and I put dirt in it, and I stood in this box barefoot. Well, I took a rope. I wanted to connect with everybody. I wanted to connect with them hydrically and electrically both. So I had a wet rope that I used symbolic of a vine, or not of a vine, but as a root. And so I coiled the part of that rope down into the planter that I stood in, and then I coiled it around in a big circle for all my friends to stand in. And so they would then come up to me, one in turn, and they would take a scoop of dirt, and they'd put it on the vine, and they would put their foot on that symbolic root during the ceremony, and they stood connected to me. And then so we all stood together and had a prayer. I opened myself up. I declared my intention of being myself to the universe and accepted what that was, and the intention of what changing my name was. That it wasn't just a symbol to change my name, like you would think of, a pouting teenager or something. Right. It was a transition. It was I accept that I was someone in the past and that I'm now somebody new in the future, and who that new future is and what obligations I hold myself to. Because that was the crux of the moment for me, was it was a transition of obligation. It was obligation, that my culture and my heritage and my parents and the world that I lived in that had forced me to conform, to behave, to be able to be successful in the society that I lived in.
Right.
And as an adult, you take that step where you then transition from what the world has made you and you make yourself. And as you step through that portal, you have to, if you shed the transgressions of your past, you have to accept the responsibility of your future. And so in that moment, that's what that ceremony is about. It's I connected to my friends and my family, and as I opened myself to the universe and called out who I was and wanted the universe to accept me, I had my friends there, morally and physically and connected to me.
And we're back. So next question, buddy.
All right.
You are quite the inspirer.
Yes.
What inspires you to be a life coach?
Oh, sorry. So that's a little bit of my origin story there, I guess, is part of what we were talking about, how you wanted to ask a few questions of me and who I am and where I came from. So a lot of my development was first from an early childhood. I had a wonderful childhood. I had great parents. We grew up in a loving home. My family did so much to teach and train and educate me. I was able to learn so many things and had so many experiences. As I grew into my younger teen years, I began to develop a very poor relationship with my father. All the things that he had done to make me feel strong and capable was suddenly a barrier between he and I. And it was later on in life I began to understand what that psychology was. And it was a relationship that pained me terribly because he was, the father of the son. He was, not to sound weird, but the love of my life at that time. I was still a child. I was in love with not who my father was, but the idea of what my father was, as many children are, many sons who are strongly impressed upon by their fathers. And he was so many things to me and so well respected that the loss of that relationship was devastating to me. Right. He was my rock. And I went out into the world, and I wound up going into the military. I joined the Air Force, and I spent my 18th birthday in the Air Force in basic training. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something. I didn't want to just sit in the town that I grew up in, like all my friends had, and become a dishwasher in the back of some restaurant somewhere. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had to go out and do something. There was opportunity within like the family tradition. We were electricians. The men were construction and the women were in medical. So I could have followed along in that family tradition in some way, but that just wasn't pulled to me. That wasn't what drew me. And a lot of that was a repulsion of my relationship with my father. I wanted to get away. So I went into the military. I spent my 18th birthday in basic training, and I was a very slow to mature person. My intellect developed very quickly. I was very smart, very, very accurate and acute. I had a great sense of humor. I was, comedy, all these things that we look for when we talk about intuitive people. I hit all those markers. But physically, I was slow to physically develop, and some of my ability to socially interact was way slower and less developed than what other people's were. And so when I went into the Air Force in the basic training, I was very impressionable. And they had done something to me that my father had done to me, was break me down. But where my father never built me up, the military already has a process to rebuild you. And so I went in as a broken person in a way and was broken again and rebuilt. And the thing that makes me, I guess, when people ask me how or why I'm different than anyone else, would be that I oftentimes am third person to myself. I almost feel as if we're in a video game. I'm looking down at all of us in this isometric view. I see myself in the decisions I make and almost in a visual sense, with the patterns and the connectivity and the ramifications of all the event down the timeline almost shows up in a visual way to me. And I live my life oftentimes that way. And so it gets disturbing. Where were we going with this question?
You are definitely inspiring the audience right now. But it was about the life coach.
Oh, life coach.
Yeah.
How I got there. So how I got to be a life coach. So So I went into the military and I did a bunch of stuff. I started off in the Guard. I started off in electronics. I spent a couple years doing that. It was during the time that Bill Clinton was the president, and they did some changing in the structure of the military. And so they took all of what they called the lawn darts, all the fighter jets, and they gave them to the active duty people. And then all the support aircraft came over to the Guard and Reserve. Well, I was in the Guard at the time. And so what happened is that every time we deployed somebody, which we then went and did for 20 years, we had to call up the Guard or Reserve to get them to there. So I spent then the next 4 years as a loadmaster on a C-130, going all over the world, training, kicking guys out the back door, and seeing how the rest of the world really was. And it changed me deeply, dramatically, and fundamentally. And when I came back from that process into the civilian world again, back into the world where all of the rules of my father and all the rules of my culture and all the rules of my society did not conform to what I had done. I had been the 1% of the 1%. I was badass mofo, man. I did some shit nobody else ever did. And you come back into the world and you have to live this 9-to-5 job where you got some guy going to threaten your job over your attitude. And you're like, dude, you just threatened my job, you threatened my wife, you threatened my kids. And in the high-strung mentality I had, I'm like, you threatened my life. I mean, you threatened everything about me. You are a threat. I have to take you out. Yeah. And you get caught up in this because part of that process is that's how you solve problems. Violence, destruction. I know how to fix. I will end this, and it won't be a problem.
Right.
And that's that mentality you take. And so I was kind of broken in some pretty fundamental ways. And my wife and I, our relationship was very difficult. Despite the love we had for each other and with each other, there was all of this in my head. And it took some friends and some self-healing and some time to figure out what I had wrong with me. And with a lot of help and a lot of work, I got into a good place. Right. And I knew that if there was anybody else that had to make that transition, I thought that I had, with this unusual perspective I think I have on how I make decisions, I was able to see what choices I really had to make and how that turned inside my head, how I really had to make this choice here and how that would cut off a gate of thought, right. How I wouldn't follow that thread anymore. And it was through that process that I thought I really understood the mechanics and the fundamentals of it. And I started to talk to other veterans and to other people that I saw that were in grief or in pain or in need. And, I'm pretty empathetic. I connect with people pretty quickly. And my knowledge and my experience and the techniques that I had learned or taught myself was something other people were really hungry for. And, you can't, like any hospitable person, when they were hungry, I couldn't stop feeding them. And so it developed into what it is now, and through the love and the help and the admiration of my wife and pushing me and telling me that, this is something that's real, that other people really want this from you. You talk about us being a power couple, man. It's not.
Oh man, you go through your ups and downs,
man.
But you know what the crazy thing about this is? You're basically saying you went through some stuff. Going through that stuff, you learned a lot. And man, coming from the military, coming back to this plain old world where there's simple civilian rules, man, it does take a toll on you. I know it does. But to give that back to somebody else, sometimes it's giving it right back to you. Yeah. And the first episode that I had a guest on here is talk about the same thing. There's a certain amount of people in the world, man, all of us are hurting. Even if we don't admit it or not, somewhere deep down inside, we are always hurting somewhere, and we're just ignoring it and not trying to deal with it. So we become these people to help calm that beast. When I first came to one of your meetings down at the parlor, just sitting there listening to some of the things that you talked about and seeing your wife there supporting, you really do need a support system. Support systems are great, and I'm going to tell you like this. I pick my friends through the relationships they have with their women. I mean,
that's a good indicator.
I'm just saying it matters having that support next to you. So, but what keeps you motivated, and what can you say to the viewers that may help them find that motivational source that may keep them tapped into the to that energy, that extra source of energy? What could you say to the viewers that'll
purpose your passion? That was the phrase that I developed for myself. If I don't make myself do something that's good with intention, I'm one of those guys that'll get myself in trouble, Mm-hmm. And I will inevitably, because I perform, I produce, I make, I do. I can't stop but think all the time. So it comes out of me. So I have to live a life of intention. You have to do this on purpose, or you'll do it on mispurpose. Right. So purpose your passion, man. Make yourself do the things that you find important. Live in a life of intention. That's a whole lot of it. One of the things, many people ask me about what's the best one piece of advice you could give somebody. So when it comes to something like that, it would be, understand that you have drives and desires, and learning how you are in command of those. Yeah. So many people try to tell you that you get in charge. A misconception. Your emotions control you. You are in command. Your emotions are in control. Your emotions are an override to your your cognitive process.
Right.
It is your history telling you a warning or a lesson or something that you need to pay attention to. And now, sometimes we have misinformed our history. Like if we have a broken past or something that was wrong, it's trying to tell us the wrong thing about our history, our future, and the plans we're supposed to be making. That would be the one. We're getting off track here, but that would probably be that closest, that best thing. Learn to understand that your emotions are in command of you, or in control of you, and you must be in command of them. It's like being in charge of a team. That movie, what was the movie with the kids and they were all the emotions in their brains? There's like 5 of them. Inside Out, yeah. That was actually pretty, when it comes to mental health and understanding how your emotions, that's actually pretty right on. I mean,
Inside Out.
Inside Out.
I haven't checked that out, but I definitely will now.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Parler.
Oh, sure.
So you do have these sessions where you give some pretty good information, man. I've been to several of them, and I'm very, very glad I was able to go because here you are. And you're spreading your word, you're helping other people, like I like to do. I like to hang around people that like to do the good stuff. So what can you say about this? When is the next meeting? Do you have, how often do you have these things?
I have them every month, and usually they are the fourth. Here, let me get it from my publicist here. The fourth Wednesday of every month. I have them at the Parlor. Currently is where we're holding them. This next 2 months, though, because of the holidays, we're going to have it on the third Wednesday. It'll be the 7th. It'll be the 17th in November, and then it'll be a different day in December.
It's good to have a planner, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the love advice. So the love advice everybody asks me then, about, because I'm a happy guy. That's why everybody looks at, because I got a smile on my face all the time. I'm like, John Travolta walking down the street singing a song, swinging the can of paint all the time. Because first off, I'm in love, so.
It matters.
You don't want to find somebody that completes you. You need to find a whole person. Every one of us should be whole, complete individuals.
Ooh,
you find somebody who complements you. You're not supposed to fill in one another's holes. You help each other fill in one another's holes. But where you're good at something, you find somebody that is good in other things is oftentimes a good compliment. They talk about opposites attracting. It's a truism. It's because it does, because people who can find a way. The opposite couple is the ultimate compromise. It's people learning to work together, even though they see things differently. An old loving couple that operates that way is a great example, if you look to something in life, to how you could see it for yourself.
Right. So what do you do at these meetings? Explain to the audience of what they stand to gain by coming down there and spending an hour of awesome conversation, man. It was, man.
I appreciate it. So the first thing I'm going to do is challenge you. So I see what we talked a little bit earlier about how maybe I see things different than some other people do. So I go through and I talk about, I'll pick a topic, I'll pick a theme every month, and we'll focus on that. I try to teach you a method I'll educate you on how we can communicate this information to ourselves, because the first thing is how you need to learn to accept what I'm telling you, because what I'm telling you might be contrary to what you've heard. And what we really need to do is change our perspective. It's what I'm telling you isn't wrong. What I'm telling you is from a different perspective. So much of what we do is we sit down and we learn to communicate to each other right from the very beginning. Right. And we'll start to communicate, and then we talk about whatever the theme of the month is. In each month, it's something different. I talk about how your emotions are in control of you, or how you make emotional decisions oftentimes. That's a popular topic. But we go everything through goal setting. We talk about finances sometimes. Well, we just have a theme to begin the conversation, and I'll speak out on I'll do a bit of a monologue on that. We'll have some interaction that's intentional. I'll ask you guys some questions, or we'll try to interact with each other on purpose, or sometimes we play like find somebody bingo or whatever. We'll play games and things like that, because part of what we're doing is networking. It's called critical skills networking, and we're teaching the fundamentals of communication within a community. Right. There are 3 basic realities that we live in. The first one is individuality. That's the world that you live in inside yourself. The other is your community, right? And that's the world outside of you. And then the last one is that spirituality. That's the world from beyond. And we find our hopes in the same place, the 3 hopes. The first hope is that hope within. The second hope is the hope without. And that third hope is that even if I can't find it within those 2, I know that there's hope beyond.
So where is Parlor at?
Oh, the Parlor is down on Locust Street in the 17
1707 Locust.
1707 Locust. There we go.
What time? What time is this? Is 7? Was it 7?
6:30 to 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30.
It's
And
a
it
full-
might turn
it's
into
a-
about 9:30,
Oh man,
10:30.
they kick us out. They kick us out too. I was turns into a happy hour because the topic or the theme is a reason for us to begin talking.
Right.
It's a conversation. As all things should be. It's a
it's-
great conversation before it's over.
Oh, it's a good conversation,
Yeah.
man. I had some fun down there. If you guys are just looking for some time filler, you can spend an hour and a half of your time getting together and actually creating a different experience. It's not always about somebody else's reality. How can everybody get in contact with you?
Well, they can get a hold of me on the internets is www.johnnyavocado.com. That's JOHNE avocado AVOCADO.com. I'm also on the Facebook and on LinkedIn. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, we'll copy all the other extra information. We can put that stuff in the description for you guys.
Oh, you can check it. So I post the tickets up on Eventbrite, so you can always check. If you want to know when or what date I'm there, or if I should change venues, you can check me out on Eventbrite. And I'm picking up. I do so many things. The speaking engagement is something recent over the last few years that I've started to put some more time into. But I'm picking up more public speaking engagements as we go. So check Eventbrite, and I might be around there some more.
Yeah.
Check the website as well.
Heck yeah, man. I definitely enjoy the company, man. I definitely do. John E Avocado, thank you for
Coffee Cup
coming
Chuck.
out, man.
I appreciate it, my friend.
Man, thank you for coming out, man. Thank you. Thank you all for joining me on another wonderful Saturday morning. I hope you guys have a wonderful, safe rest of your week. And until the next time, stay positive, people. Bing, bang.